Egypt and Iran condemn any actions that undermine the sovereignty of nations. Donald Trump says Iranian nuclear sites were severely damaged. And Iran says it will suspend cooperation with the IAEA. You're watching Q News at 4. I'm Henny Saif, and in the news today, the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has condemned any actions that undermine the sovereignty of nations, particularly among Arab and Islamic states. During a phone call with the Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian, President el-Sisi welcomed the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Iran, emphasizing the need for commitment to it amid regional tensions. Sisi also rejected the recent Iranian missile attack on Qatar and highlighted Egypt's diplomatic efforts to restore stability. Both leaders agreed on the importance of comprehensive political solutions and resuming nuclear negotiations between Washington and Tehran. Iran's Red Crescent has released footage claiming to show damage from Israeli airstrikes as both countries begin observing a U.S.-brokered ceasefire. The video, which could not be independently verified, follows 12 days of Israeli attacks that killed hundreds, including top Iranian military and nuclear figures. Iran responded with mass missile launches that breached Israeli defenses. Tehran says 610 people were killed and nearly 5,000 wounded, while Israel reported 28 deaths. The ceasefire was announced by U.S. President Donald Trump. Israel says its regional operation dealt a major blow to Iran's proxy network as it probes the Gaza blast that killed 7 soldiers. Army spokesperson Brigadier General Efir Defrin called the Gaza incident complex and confirmed it remains under investigation. He stressed the broader impact of the operation, claiming Tehran-backed groups across the region suffered serious damage. Defrin added that Israel's assessment suggests Iran's nuclear program has been set back by years. IAEA Chief Rafael Grossi says his top priority is redeploying inspectors to Iran's nuclear sites after U.S. and Israeli strikes. Speaking in Austria, Grossi stressed the need to verify Iran's enriched uranium stocks, including material near weapons-grade purity. Iran told the agency it was taking special measures to protect its nuclear assets, but gave no details. Grossi suggested much of the material likely survived the June 13th Israeli attacks and warned of the urgent need for full access. Flights resumed at Tel Aviv's Ben Gurion airport as Israel reopened its airspace following a ceasefire with Iran. The Israeli military lifted nationwide restrictions on Tuesday evening after nearly 2 weeks of aerial exchanges with Iran. The airport's authority confirmed Ben Gurion has reopened and is coordinating with carriers to restore flight capacity. The El Al airline is launching an airlift operation to return thousands of stranded Israelis abroad since the war began on June 13th. U.S. President Donald Trump says Iranian nuclear sites were severely damaged, though intelligence on the impact remains inconclusive. Speaking alongside Secretaries Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth, Trump disputed reports that the strikes only delayed Iran's nuclear program by a few months. The U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency had issued that assessment earlier this week. Both Rubio and Hegseth echoed Trump's skepticism, raising questions about the reliability of the intelligence.
Because Bibi is going to have people involved in that whole situation fighting each other. They've had it.
Iran says it will suspend cooperation with the IAEA and accelerate its nuclear program, pending final approval by its Security Council. Parliament Speaker Mohammad Baqir Qalibaf announced the Atomic Energy Organization will end coordination with the UN nuclear watchdog, claiming Iran's nuclear efforts will now proceed at a faster pace. The bill, passed by lawmakers, still requires the green light from Iran's Supreme National Security Council. Tehran blames a recent IAEA resolution for justifying Israeli airstrikes and denies any intent to develop nuclear weapons. The Kremlin says it's premature to judge the full impact of U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear sites and calls the attack unprovoked. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Moscow is closely watching the situation and maintains direct contact with Tehran. He responded to President Trump's claim that Iran's nuclear program was obliterated, saying no clear damage assessment can yet be made. Russia views the strikes as concerning but noted signs of U.S.-Iran communication. Pope Leo has urged Iran and Israel to abandon revenge and embrace diplomacy after 12 days of war. Speaking at the end of his weekly audience in St. Peter's Square, the Pope called on both sides to reject oppression and vengeance. His appeal comes as the U.S. joined Israel in targeting Iranian nuclear sites, escalating the conflict. The pontiff urged leaders to commit to dialogue and a peaceful resolution. China says it will protect its energy security following U.S. comments on Iranian oil sales after the Israel-Iran ceasefire. Beijing responded after U.S. President Donald Trump said China could continue buying Iranian oil despite ongoing sanctions, remarks later clarified by the White House as not signaling a policy shift. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Gu Jiakun said China would act in line with its national interests. Trump also noted Iran's restraint in not closing the Strait of Hormuz, a critical route for Chinese oil imports. The Non-Proliferation Treaty is a key international pact aiming to stop nuclear weapons from spreading and promote global peace and stability. And for more analysis, we now move to Rana Al-Assas in our newsroom. Rana.
Thank you so much, Hani. And for further analysis, we're joined from Cairo by Al-Ahram newspaper managing editor Ashraf Al-Ashri. Welcome to Q News, sir. How sustainable is the current ceasefire between Iran and Israel, given the level of casualties and mutual distrust, sir?
Certainly, there are guarantees by the party with respect to the sustainable ceasefire agreement. And I think there is, in fact, conviction by Iran and Israel with the necessity to sustain the ceasefire agreement, as the war have already damaged both sides gravely. There was some sort of a sabotage of the nuclear program, and the three nuclear reactors in Isfahan and Fordo and Tantas. And along with the Iranian institutional authority and the remaining infrastructure in Tehran, in return, there was some sort of sabotage in the air defense infrastructure in Bersab, Tel Aviv, Haifa, and other countries. So the size of the devastations between two sides are grave. So the EU is posed the pressure on both sides, and this agreement could be agreed upon verbally, but I think there are guarantees between both sides abiding by the US on a necessity. Both sides do not wish to go back on the battlefield, as there is in fact a greater preparedness to ignite the conflicts between the two sides. Hence, there is a continuation of the ceasefire, and maybe will witness a new negotiation between America in the days to come. And also Arab parties will join, and to have no return or resumptions of the war once again.
Okay, that's great, sir. Sir, how credible are the claims that Israeli strikes set back Iran's nuclear program by years? And what are the implications if that proves to be incorrect?
Certainly, even upon the IAEA report and report of the international watchdogs with respect to within Iran through the foreign ministry today, that the nuclear sites are gravely damaged. And there are some sort of a great sabotage of the Iranian nuclear sites, including the central substantial site, which is Fordo, being demolished and became out of service completely. And I think there's some sort of a bargain that was held between America and Iran to put an end of the threat through the military actions in return to have or to preserve the regime in the Iranian regime, and hence such a deal was agreed upon, and there was some sort of a consensus to have a possible sanctions to be lifted, provided not to presume the production of the nuclear program. Within 10 years, Iran, I think, wouldn't be able to do some sort of enrichment of uranium, as all being devastated related to the program, and the energy sites will be completely demolished. That would require great money for that, with this regard, and therefore America has already guaranteed, at least for the upcoming 10 years, to convince Iran to address the matter politically and economically. And
Got
even
your points here. What impact could Iran's suspension of the IAEA cooperation have on global non-proliferation efforts and regional stability?
a decision wasn't issued officially. It was just some sort of a recommendation by the Iranian parliament. There is several accusations by the IAEA and that was very biased to Israel. And I think before issuing such a resolution, it should take into consideration that this matter will expose it and to more sections. So such a matter should be reconsidered, and I think it is premature to issue and a great scar on Iran's image, with the addition that the American side by Trump will pursue to provide some sort of laws to stop the nuclear program. And along with the withdrawal from the NPT, and in addition that might give them some sort of promises of lifting the economic sections along with economic privileges.
Okay, sir, in light China and Russia's close partnerships with Iran, do you see them playing a significant role in any upcoming negotiations between Tehran and Washington?
In the period of the war, Russia and China have some sort of a negative neutral role, and that caused a disappointment in Iran's public. Despite the strategic partnership between Iran and Russia, Russia's only issued a statement condemning the Israeli strikes, but practically Russia had no presence militarily in supporting Iran, as it is very busy with the Ukrainian crisis and do not pursue to make any disagreement with America. In return, will perhaps some sort of a role in the resumption of the nuclear negotiation along with the EU, Arab countries. That will be the new condition to resume the negotiation. Iran might not resume negotiation directly with the U.S. Based on the mistrust that has been exist as it being deceived, providing military coverage to strike Iran and into nuclear sites. So the bilateral negotiation between Iran and America won't be happening unless but a comprehensive negotiation joined by the Arab parties along with the effective international parties along with the neighboring countries with Iran.
That was Ashraf Al-Ashri from Cairo, Al-Ahram newspaper managing editor. Thank you very much for joining us on Q News. Now we go back to Hani Saif in our studios. Hani?
Thank you, Rana. Ladies and gentlemen, now we head for the latest developments in Gaza. Palestinians in Gaza held funerals for those killed in recent Israeli attacks, including 8 seekers shot while trying to access food. Gaza's health ministry says Israeli forces opened fire multiple times at crowded aid distribution points, killing and injuring dozens. Humanitarian groups say the aid system forces civilians into combat zones. Israel claims it fired to control threats, but rights groups call the shootings unprovoked. Hamas accuses Israel of weaponizing hunger. Charges Israel denies, blaming Hamas for diverting aid. Palestinians inspected the aftermath of an Israeli strike on a Gaza fuel station sheltering displaced people. The strike hit overnight in Gaza City, where civilians had sought refuge. It comes amid ongoing Israeli military operations following Hamas's October 7th attack, which killed 1,200 people and led to the capture of 251 hostages, according to Israeli figures. Gaza's health ministry says over 56,000 Palestinians have been killed, with mass displacement and worsening hunger across the enclave. In Gaza, hundreds gathered to mourn Palestinian journalist Mahmoud Abu Sharbi killed in an Israeli airstrike. The shrouded body of Abu Sharbi, still wearing his press vest, was carried through Gaza City by fellow journalists and mourners. A graduate in media and public relations, he was known for his coverage on Telegram, where his reporting reached over 100,000 followers. His father described him as a dedicated journalist who filmed sensitive and dangerous moments on the front lines. The strike that killed Abu Sharbi also left several civilians dead and injured. At Al Shifa Hospital, scenes of grief continued, with families mourning loved ones and medics treating wounded children. Israel has not commented on the specific strike. In Gaza, funerals were for Palestinians killed by Israeli fire as they attempted to collect humanitarian aid the previous night. According to Gaza's health ministry, the victims were among hundreds shot or shelled near distribution sites since late May. A UN human rights spokesperson said over 410 civilians have been killed while trying to access food from the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Israel claimed those killed were near military operations in the central Netzarim corridor, but said it was still reviewing the reports. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation told Reuters it had no knowledge of any incident near its designated aid point, which lies several kilometers from the area. Many Palestinians continue to risk their lives approaching UN trucks and Israeli-controlled aid routes. And NATO leaders are set to endorse a major increase in defense spending as US President Donald Trump receives credit for pushing the alliance towards a stronger, fairer military posture. At a summit in The Hague, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte said the bloc is taking historic transformational decisions to boost defense and equalize burden sharing. Rutte praised Trump's leadership, citing an additional $1 trillion in European defense spending since 2016. The new goal, 5% of GDP, follows rising concern over Russian aggression since the 2022 invasion of Ukraine. These are all the news we have for now, but here's a reminder of today's main stories. Egypt and Iran condemn any actions that undermine the sovereignty of nations. Donald Trump says Iranian nuclear sites were severely damaged. And Iran says it will suspend cooperation with the IAEA. This concludes our news bulletin for now, but please don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram and TikTok at Q News EGY to stay informed. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more updates coming up here on Q News.